Can you give us some specific examples of the types of things that were testified to that Scientology would do in order to suppress people's voices or the reporting of crimes by fellow members of the Church of Scientology?
Yeah. Well, one of the things that she testified to is what is the actual procedure that gets kickstarted, goes into play when someone comes in and reports a crime like this. And she spoke to that and the fact that Scientology is very much into investigating the precise details of accusations. They don't just go, we don't want to hear it. We don't want to hear it. They investigate it like crazy. You might think like, oh my God, they would investigate it. Like, yes, they want to know exactly what happened, time, place, form an event, who was there, what was said, what occurred exactly. And then they would bring in everyone else involved and get them to provide all the exact same details from their own perspective.
I'm sorry, that surprises me, Aaron.
You'll see.
That surprises me. Go ahead. That's really surprising.
Oh my God. Down to the minute detail. And by the way, all of these reports are written reports, not just verbal reports, written reports. And then once all the reports are gathered, the key figures involved are going to be further interrogated using Scientology's e-meter. In Scientology, it's called a security check or a sec check, but it's an interrogation because they want to know who did what exactly. Now you might go, oh, because they're going to like really come down hard on the perpetrator. The thing is, in Scientology, there's this concept that we're all immortal spiritual beings called Thetans, and we are all completely responsible, not only for everything we do, but everything that's done to us. And Scientology has its own ethics and justice and discipline procedures, and they need to know all the details so they know how much discipline to dish out to each party. It's just that none of this ever includes involving law enforcement. So you might be surprised that they want all of these details because you're like, well, they're not going to report it to anybody. They want the details for their own use, right?
Because they're going to have their own type of enforcement, basically.
Yes. And so if you have Jane Doe 1 or Jen is like Scientology, she's going to be raked over the coals to isolate. Now, look, yes, he did this to you, but let's figure out what parts of this you were responsible for, because you're going to have to make amends for the parts you were responsible for.
My God.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And I don't mean responsible like how short was the skirt you were wearing? I mean, have you done something similar to someone else in a prior life? Maybe, it's wackadoodle. I mean,
are you kidding? That is so dangerous.
Yeah.
That is so dangerous. I cannot even. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
When you're in Scientology, this shit makes perfect sense. That's what's so scary. That's what's so scary.
Of course. I actually do understand that because I used to be in a religion. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. And so, in Scientology, almost no matter how bad what you've done is, there's sort of a standard series of procedures in place called the lower ethics conditions that you have to go through the steps of these conditions. They're called the conditions formulas. And the lower ethics conditions are like liability, enemy, treason, doubt, liability, and confusion. And usually you get put down into liability, and there's a step that you have to do to make up the damage and deliver an effective blow to the enemies of the group and all this kind of stuff. And that's where you can get amends projects and people donating money to make up the amends and make up the damage. There's all sorts of steps. Basically, the worst thing that you did, the longer it will take you to come out of your lower conditions, but everyone's doing the same lower conditions.
Okay.
So Jane Doe 1 at this point might have been assigned lower conditions to address the parts of it she was responsible for. And then Danny would be doing lower conditions for the parts he's responsible for. Because there's no such thing as a victim in Scientology. A victim is actually a slanderous, a derogatory word in Scientology. Being a victim is actually, it's one of the ways Scientology has redefined words. Being a victim is a slur in Scientology.
Oh my God.
Yes. You always have to approach everything how you can take responsibility for it and how you can be at cause over it. And so,
I'm sorry, Aaron, but if no one is a victim, then no one is a perpetrator. That lets perpetrators off the hook. There's no real accountability for them. If we're all equally being punished, then no one's really the perpetrator here.
I would agree with you, but in Scientology, they have this weird thing where like everybody is pretty much a perpetrator at all times, meaning like in Scientology, like everyone is always being accused of being a bad guy. So it's okay to accuse someone of being a bad guy, but being a victim is what you must never be.
Okay.